one of the things I was very, very happy and excited that I was going to see was the opening this weekend of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. And oh boy, I don't normally say this, but this is one of the best movies I have ever seen. It was from beat to beat. 2 hours and 49 minutes is the runtime in this film. And long movies are generally a disaster for me. I have fears and of going to the bathroom multiple times in the show because it's so long. You look at that large Diet Coke in the concession stand, and all of a sudden you go, I'm not going to make it through half of this plot. It is so intriguing from beat to beat. It is such a good, a well-paced narrative that it goes by in a flash. I haven't many times felt like I wanted to see a movie again just because of how fantastic it was, because of the pacing, because of the visuals, and because it's Tom Cruise. You're going to have some crazy practical effect that you didn't think was possible. I went to go see it in IMAX, which is probably appropriate. I mean, everybody remembers Tom Cruise before Top Gun Maverick. Personally thanked everybody for coming to the theater and reviving the theater and making sure that the movie theaters didn't die because of the COVID pandemic. Even despite the COVID pandemic, I think movie theaters were doing a pretty good job of killing themselves with concession prices, sticky floors, and people lighting up their cell phones in the middle of it and talking throughout the movie. So they were doing a pretty good job assisting that decline. But Tom Cruise thanked everybody before Top Gun and saying, thank you for coming back to the movie theater. Thank you for being here. You know, you're doing your part, blah, blah, blah. This is how movies should be viewed. Seeing this in IMAX was how this thing should be viewed. Got to see it in IMAX in a big screen. It made the visuals pop even more than I thought they would be. It made it feel like I was immersed in it, and it was fantastic. The other thing too, going into the Final Reckoning, because Dead Reckoning came out 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago, because it was Top Gun, then it was Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, then Dead Reckoning Part 1, which this movie, Dead Reckoning Part 2, was changed to The Final Reckoning. whether I guess maybe they know there's a finality to it, because Tom Cruise is getting older, but it was only a couple years ago that this movie came out, and my biggest fear going into this movie was I don't remember anything about that movie. I remember it ended on a train. I remember Vanessa Kirby was in it because she was in The Crown at the time, or at least the time I was watching The Crown. And I remember that it ended on a cliffhanger. And I didn't know how we got there, who we were fighting, what we were fighting. And luckily, I went in and watched a YouTube recap, something on 4 minutes. God bless the YouTuber making that recap. I don't know. I don't know I don't remember the handle of the YouTuber. I should, but they did a recap, 4 minutes. Boom, I was back on board. I couldn't tell you the pros or the lore that's attached to the other remaining 7 films, or that are 6 films that are previous here. I did not jump into Mission Impossible in the very, very beginning. This movie made me go back and watch the first Mission Impossible because it got me so invested in it. And I feel like that's the key to a good movie franchise. If you want to go back and watch the rest, then you're hooked. You're in it. If you're seeing Fast and Furious 2000 and you want to go back and watch Fast and Furious 1000, you're hooked, right? Mission Impossible has 8 films in the franchise right now. I wanted to go back to the first one. I recommend that you do that because the pacing and the stark contrast between the first and the last is amazing. It is very different. Feels like a totally different film. It feels like it was made in a totally different era because it was made in a totally different era. They even make an allusion to that in the film, talking about 35 years of Mission Impossible in the theaters. 35 years. Not many franchises can boast that they've been around for 35 years. Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Mission Impossible, and Fast and the Furious, because I think 3 Fast and Furious movies came out since the start of this podcast. I'm not certain about that fact, but you can fact check me on that. It's an amazingly paced movie. They do a really, really good job of bringing you up to speed in a way that's different, in a way that, it might seem exposition heavy in the beginning, but it's necessary because they seem to have an awareness that people are going to come in not remembering everything, every single beat of Mission Impossible. And why would you? You hold on to these experiences for about a week until you're like, what happened in the movie that we just saw? So they do a good job bringing you up to speed. I remember feeling amazed too. Mission Impossible has typically, since the very first one, they have a pretty amazing opening credits scene, which is absent from most movies. I feel like most movies, you have a beautiful drone shots and then boom, you have a title card. This one, there was a lot of stuff that happened before, a lot of action, a lot of exposition, catching you up, and then the title scene, which is beautifully edited, comes at you and blows you away. And I remember saying, I thought we were in the movie at this point. I thought we were rolling and we were just going to not have a title card. And then it comes at you and it makes you appreciate video editing in a totally different way, because it's not really, 3D, crazy CGI. It is just beautifully cut in a way that's fast. It's electric. It makes you kind of think of the 1960s show opening and all the ones that have come before it. And it immediately made me think of James Bond and how much of a different energy that those opening credits, which that franchise has been, that's another franchise that's been around for 35 years, more than 35 years, that like has an opening credit scene, but it's such a different vibe. I feel like with Bond, you have an action film and boom, it goes into the opening credit scene, and you're going to enjoy like a 4 to 5 minute slow burn of somebody singing a very loosely attached song that's about the show or about the movie, and singing a ballad as you see these like opaque and scantily clad people just kind of in front of your screen. That's what you're going to get, right? Most Bond films, especially the latest ones, which take on the more serious tone, right? This one is anything but that. Mission Impossible hits you in the face and keeps on going. And it's just punch, punch, punch. It lands those punches each time. And it doesn't really let you have time to breathe. And that's what makes this pacing amazing. Because really, by the time it doesn't overstay its welcome in any of its scenes, even when Ethan Hunt is captured, you're not going to stay in that situation for very long before you're globe-trotting to another set. It really reminded me of Indiana Jones or Uncharted, all those things where by the time you really take a breath, by the time you look away, you're in a totally different part of the world, trying to chase down the antagonist of the film. And in this case, the antagonist still is the Entity, which is an AI programming that's taking over the world's nuclear arsenals. Something that resonates, I guess, way more true than it probably did even 2 years ago with all the rise of AI stuff that's in the news and in everyone's workflow and stuff like that. Obviously, this is a fictitious plot, but it certainly resonates a lot more than it did maybe when Dead Reckoning was out. So it's great in pacing as that. Some negatives, some interesting cast choices in this particular movie. Nick Offerman plays one of the president's confidants in this movie, and Hannah Waddingham, who is from Ted Lasso, plays like a Navy commander in this film. Very hard to separate those two characters from who they are, not only in real life, especially Nick Offerman, because Nick Offerman, to me, he's so Ron Swanson and he's so Nick Offerman. He's so distinctively himself that it's really hard to even pull yourself out of it. It reminded me again of seeing Brad Pitt in 10 Years a Slave. You're like, I'm sorry, I can't pull out Brad Pitt away from this movie. I can't not see him as Brad Pitt, which happens to a lot of actors over time. Hannah Waddingham, less so, but it still was an issue. I think her character, getting away from that Ted Lasso character, her accent changed in this one. That was a good move. But her playing this different role, it was very hard to unsee it. So it may not have been the greatest casting choices in the world to go with them, although their characters are good, especially Nick Offerman's character. They're fantastic in the film. So in that case, I thought the negatives were there. The positives, I mean, the visual effects are some of the best visual effects I've ever seen in a movie. Especially, there's a sequence with an Ohio-class submarine. Unbelievable visuals. Obviously not practical. Tom Cruise is not near that submarine in real life. But the practical, I'm assuming, because I remember seeing clips of him hanging onto a side of a plane. There is a plane sequence where he's hanging off the side of it. Practical. I mean, that's half of the reason why you go see a Mission Impossible at this point, because you know Tom Cruise is going to do something unimaginable and it's not going to be faked. Dead Reckoning had the famous, I believe it's Dead Reckoning, the last one, had the famous motorcycle jump that was real. You know, it's him doing it. It's not a stunt man, it's him. This one, he's hanging off the side of a plane that looks like it was built by Orville Wright, and all practical. It seems like it's like, I imagine some of it's faked and stuff like that, but like there is a clip of him hanging off the side of a plane, so I can only imagine that it's real. And that's why you see these films, because of their amazing set pieces and their amazing practical effects. The other thing truly that's kind of fun about these films is how camp they are. They do a good job of keeping the comedy light. There's a truly cartoon, I believe it's before the title card, there's a truly cartoonish sequence a couple times in the films that give you kind of this, give you kind of pause. Like it kind of gives you a break away from all the action, because some sequences in Mission Impossible are very, very hard to watch. They're like a little gruesome at times. That's always been true throughout the whole series. But there's a cartoonish sequence where he's beating somebody up, and you just see Haley, I think it's Haley Atwell, looking at this destruction that's happening off screen, and and you just hear sound effect after sound effect, something that you would almost hear in a comedy or in like some vaudevillian play, and it happens. There are moments of improv that happen between the characters that it seems like they just kind of left in. There's a moment with Simon Pegg that when he's in a bad way, he's trying to kind of convey something and he's drifting off, and he comes back because he subverts your expectations that way. They keep these moments in, and they're very important. I mean, if you really look at the dire state of the world in Mission Impossible, these moments shouldn't be happening, but they do a good job keeping them in and making sure that you know that it's not as serious as Bond is. And I think it harkens back to when Bond was campy, when it was a little bit of this attitude, when Pierce Brosnan was James Bond as opposed to Daniel Craig. It was like this Mission Impossible. It was a little bit more corny, but it had that kind of element running through it, and this Mission Impossible does as well. Lastly, I want to say my only negative from the film did not come from the film itself. It came from the movie theater that I saw it in. Saw it at an AMC. Movie time was at 2 p.m. I don't normally see a movie on the day that it comes out, but I saw it on the Friday of release. I know there are Thursday showings now. There's probably Wednesday showings now at some point. But I did see this movie on the Friday that it came out, 2 p.m. showtime. There were about 20 minutes of previews, which is pretty typical. And then there was commercial after commercial after commercial. There was a commercial about IMAX, which, okay, is understandable. You're going to an IMAX theater. Then there's a commercial about light and how light transcends the screen. And I'm like, are we going to go all the way back? Like, are we going to be like, in the first day he created light? Like, how far are we going to go back with these commercials? Then there was another commercial with Nicole Kidman, who's congratulating me about going to the theater. And then there's another one saying, get ready for your movie. Like, at some point, how many times do we have to get ready to see the movie that we purchased? At what point do the ads stop? I mean, why not put in a Wegovy ad by the end of the movie theater? In the middle of before the showing. I mean, how many things need to be played before the movie goes? I know that they're struggling, but it was a little nuts. It wasn't until 2:30 until the movie finally started, and that's my biggest negative, is because when you have a 2 hour and 49-minute movie and you have 30 minutes of credits, that can change your day dramatically if you're not accounting for those 30 minutes. Plenty of people were walking in right when the last preview and the last commercial were. I think people that are going to an AMC probably have better planning skills than I do, because they probably knew, hey, no, you go at 2:30. If it says 2, go at 2:30, because you're going to miss an F1 trailer, which I'm very excited about, coming out in July, end of June, and a Jurassic World trailer, which is, I believe, coming out in July. But they did it in a better way than I did, because by the end of the commercial, I just thought, we're never seeing this movie. I think they might run commercials forever at this point. 30 minutes. It used to be 20 minutes when I was a kid. 30 minutes. That is too much. That's too much. That's too much for the average movie theater to go through. You got to tell your patrons when the start time is for your movie. And anyways, with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Again, we are the Powell Not Found Podcast. You can find us at YouTube at Powell Not Found and wherever podcasts are served. We will see you next week. Everybody have a safe and happy Memorial Day. And we will see you next week with more baseball news, with more movie news, with more TV news, with more entertainment news, with whatever I want to talk about. I know, the theme is weird. See you later.